Did I really do something wrong by spending one weekend in Miami with an old friend? Or was my husband the problem for not trusting me? I told him jealousy was his issue to fix, not mine, and I believed every word of that. But I didn't know that while I was posting beach stories and telling my girls he needed to grow up, my husband was quietly building something that would end our life together in a bank conference room on a Tuesday morning. My name is Soraya Velt, and I am 32 years old, and I have always been good at knowing what I want. I work as an event coordinator for a hospitality company. I build the kind of evenings that other people remember for years, the kind where the lighting is exactly right and the music shifts at the correct moment, and no one notices the work behind it because the work is invisible. I am good at that, making difficult things look effortless. I am good at managing rooms, managing timelines, managing the way things appear. I have been married to Declan for 5 years, and for most of those years I told myself that what we had was solid, practical, good. He is a project manager at a civil engineering firm. He is calm and methodical, and he plans things carefully, and I used to think that was a quality I admired. Later I would call it rigidity. Later I would say he never knew how to be spontaneous. But on a Tuesday morning in November, standing in a locker room at my gym with my hair still wet from the shower, the only thing I was thinking about was how easy Piero's voice made everything feel. The phone buzzed and I answered without looking at the name. Piero was like that. He appeared before you had time to prepare, and somehow that was the point. He told me he would be in Miami for 10 days, a work project, a rented apartment near the water. He said the beach was different when someone worth showing it to was there, and I laughed and said I would check my calendar. I did not check my calendar. I already knew I had a 3-day gap between a vendor meeting and a product launch, and I already knew I was going to use it. I sat on the wooden bench between the rows of lockers and held the phone against my sternum for a moment after the call ended, looking at the coat hooks on the opposite wall, and I told myself this was nothing. A friend. A trip. Normal. Declan was waiting in the car. My car was being serviced, so he had driven me, and when I slid into the passenger seat, I was aware that I was smiling. Not at him exactly, but at something that had not yet become words. He noticed. He asked who had called. I said Piero, an old friend, nothing significant. He pulled out of the gym lot and kept his eyes on the road and asked how old the friendship was and whether Piero had been at the work conference in October. I told him his memory for names was a little unsettling, and I said it lightly, like a joke, and the joke landed with a weight that neither of us commented on. The morning smelled of diesel exhaust from a delivery truck idling at the lot's exit, and we waited behind it while its engine ran and the smoke curled past the passenger window in a slow blue-grey thread. That evening, on the living room sofa, he brought it up again. He said the name Piero had come up after October. I had mentioned him twice in passing, and both times the context was vague, and he remembered my phone lighting up on the kitchen counter at 11:45 one night with Piero's name before I turned it face down and came to bed. He asked calmly whether Piero was someone I considered a close friend now, and what kind of friendship it was, and whether they had met. His trap question was simple and direct. He asked me to tell him Piero's last name and what city he actually lived in, because a person described as an old friend should be easy to place in one sentence. I laughed and said I did not realize I needed to submit a dossier on everyone I had known before college, and I told him that men who catalogued their wives' contacts were not attentive. They were anxious, and anxiety was not the same as love. I turned back to the television. He waited one beat and asked again, quietly, where Piero lived now. I said Miami mostly. He nodded once and said nothing more. 2 days later, I mentioned casually that I was thinking of going to Miami for the weekend. 3 days my friend Odette might come. I needed a reset. He set down the glass he was washing, dried his hands, and said he would like to understand the plan better before it became a booking. He said he had no interest in controlling my travel. but a trip to Piero's city announced casually after a call I had not mentioned until pressed was something he needed to understand. And his boundary was simple: honesty about who I would be seeing. He said if I could give him that, he had no objection to the trip at all. I told him that was exactly what I meant about his jealousy, and I said I was a grown woman who did not require permission to visit a city, and that Odette would be there, and the whole thing was a girls' weekend. And if he could not handle my having a social life, that was something he needed to address privately with himself. He said that was not what he had said. I picked up my phone and opened a group chat, and the conversation was finished. That Thursday morning, while Declan was making Ren's breakfast downstairs, I booked the hotel in the upstairs bathroom. I used the joint credit card out of habit, not carelessness. It was simply the card I reached for. The confirmation email landed in the shared bank account notification feed. The hotel was called the Caicos Terrace. The booking was for one room, for 2 adults. Downstairs, Declan's phone buzzed on the charger beside the toaster. He did not pick it up. He was still making breakfast, still cutting the crusts off Ren's toast the way she liked. The notification sat on the screen for 11 seconds, and then the display went dark. The credit card notification arrived on Declan's phone, and he did not mention it for 2 days, which I told myself was a sign that he had let it go. He had not let it go. On Saturday morning, he came to the kitchen table with his phone and set it face up between us, the bank notification visible. The Caicos Terrace, 2 adults, joint card, charged Thursday. He did not raise his voice. He asked me to explain the booking. I looked at the screen and said Odette was sharing the room, and that was what 2 adults meant on a hotel form, and that a man reading his wife's hotel reservation like a financial audit was performing anxiety, not a marriage. I picked up his phone and placed it face down on the table. The cracked corner of the phone case, a small triangular chip in the bottom right edge, caught the table surface and made a small, precise click. He left the phone where I put it and said the notification was not the issue. The issue was that the booking had been made on the joint card without a conversation, immediately after a call from Piero for a trip to the city where Piero lived. He said his trap question was one that Odette could answer in 30 seconds. He asked me to call her right now, on speaker, and confirm that she had booked her own travel to Miami the same weekend. He said he was not accusing me of anything. He was asking for one simple confirmation from the one person who could provide it instantly. I stood up and said I did not perform my friendships for an audience of one, and that asking me to call Odette on speaker was humiliating and controlling, and the kind of behavior that drove women to plan solo trips in the first place. I walked to the stairs and he stayed at the table and did not follow. On Monday at my office, I arrived between 2 event coordinators and dropped my tote on my chair. And before I had even opened my laptop, I told the row, in a voice I calibrated for the room, that my husband had run a credit card audit on my hotel booking for a girls' weekend, and that apparently I needed to submit expense reports to my own marriage. 3 desks looked up. One person laughed. Nadia, 3 desks away, was assembling vendor folders and did not laugh. She opened one of the folders and wrote a date in the top margin in her small, even handwriting. That Monday evening, Declan's behaviour had shifted in a way I could see but did not take seriously. He had been to an appointment that morning. The shared family tablet showed a calendar entry reading Apex and 5th, 10:30 a.m., with no other detail. He came home, made Ren's dinner, and did not mention the weekend or the booking at all. After Ren was in bed, he stood at the top of the staircase landing and said he had made a call that day to someone he trusted, and he needed to ask one more time, calmly, what the Miami weekend was, and that this was the last time he would ask informally. His trap question had a new shape this time. He said that Odette's husband had spoken to his brother Tomas the day before and mentioned Odette was not going to Miami this weekend. She was visiting her sister in Portland. He asked me to explain the gap. A hotel booking for 2 adults, Odette's name in my explanation, and Odette's confirmed location, somewhere entirely different. He said the gap between what I had told him and what Odette's husband had said in passing to Tomas was not an accusation. It was a fact I could correct right now with one sentence. I told him Odette had changed her plans, that Tomas and Odette's husband were not reliable narrators of anyone's schedule, and that the fact Declan had gone to his brother to verify my social calendar told me everything about where this marriage stood. I said I was going to Miami. He said he had heard me. He went to the study and the door closed with the soft, firm resistance of a well-fitted frame. The Wednesday before the trip, I was at my office desk packing event files when a credit card company notification loaded in my work email. A travel insurance add-on had been attached to the Caicos Terrace booking. I had not added it. The name in the confirmation field was Piero Anza. He had arranged it through the hotel concierge as an amenity on the shared reservation. My name and his name were now on the same booking record, together, in a notification that had already been delivered to the joint account email feed. I stared at the screen for 30 seconds, then closed the tab and cleared the browser history, and texted Piero not to add anything to the booking under both names. He replied with a smiling emoji. I deleted the thread from my phone immediately, which felt, in the moment, like solving the problem. The deleted thread had already been delivered to the carrier's server. That detail did not occur to me at all. I will tell you about the Miami trip the way I wanted it to exist. A beach, warm water, an old friend, the particular quality of light on the water in the late afternoon when the crowds thin and you remember what it feels like to be only yourself. I did not describe what Piero and I talked about in the evenings. I did not describe the second balcony chair, or the 2 coffee cups at the table service on Sunday morning, or the photo he took of me laughing with his arm around my shoulder that I posted to my close friend's Instagram story at 9:47 on Saturday night. I called the weekend a reset. I called it necessary. I landed back home on Sunday evening smelling of a different sunscreen than the one in our bathroom cabinet, and I unpacked in the bedroom while Declan stood in the doorway and watched. And I told him I felt better. He said that was good. By Monday morning at my office desk, 3 people from my close friends list had already responded to the Saturday story. One of them, a woman named Priya who knew both me and Declan through a shared gym membership, screenshotted both the photo and the caption before I archived the story that afternoon. Priya said nothing to either of us for 3 days. She did not need to say anything yet. The company rooftop event was the following Thursday, a vendor appreciation reception with 12 tables, string lights above the glass railing, and the city skyline visible behind the west side in the long light of early evening. I had organised the logistics, and I knew every corner of it. Declan was there as my +1, standing near the railing with a sparkling water, watching the room work the way rooms do at events like this. Nadia was near the bar. Declan's brother Tomas arrived at 7:15 to drop off a phone charger Declan had left at home that morning, and he stayed near the entrance, not quite at the party. I was mid-conversation with 2 vendors when the subject of weekend trips came up. Someone mentioned Cancun, someone mentioned the Caicos, and I said Miami. And I added with a practiced laugh that my husband was still recovering from the trip, not from jet lag, from jealousy, because apparently a married woman was not allowed to visit a beach without her husband auditing the hotel receipt. Both vendors laughed. One said something warm and supportive. I added that when a man does not trust his wife's vacation, the problem is not the vacation. And I said it with the kind of smile that makes a room feel like it is agreeing with you. Declan was close enough to hear every word. The string lights above the railing made his face very easy to read, for anyone who was looking. Nadia was looking. Thomas was looking. Declan said nothing at the reception. He waited. He waited until we reached the parking garage. 3rd level, concrete pillar to the left, the attendant's booth visible below through the open wall. And then he said, quietly and completely, that he had heard everything she said near the railing. He said her joke about jealousy and hotel receipts had been made in front of her employer's vendors, two co-workers, and his brother, and it had described a private conversation as his personal failure, performed for laughs while he stood 3 feet away. His trap question was precise. He asked what she expected him to do when he heard her use the word audit and the word jealousy in a professional setting to describe his question about a hotel booking that had Piero Anza's name on the travel insurance add-on. Was he supposed to laugh along or say nothing while she built her social credit at his expense in front of people who were going to see him again? He asked her to name one thing in that conversation that was not about controlling the story at his cost. I told him he was turning a moment of rooftop small talk into a federal case. I said I was being relatable and that a husband who could not laugh at himself was exhausting to be married to, and that his decision to stand near the railing instead of joining the conversation was his own social choice, and he should not blame the consequences on my jokes. I said the vendors laughed and that mattered. He said the vendors did not know the context, but Thomas did, and Nadia did, and he was going to handle this conversation differently from now on. He said it once and did not add to it. He said, as a boundary, if she was going to describe their private disagreements as comic material at professional events, he would not attend work events as her +1. He said this was not a punishment, but a line based on what had happened tonight. He offered her one more thing. If she wanted to talk the next morning without the performance, he was willing to listen to whatever she actually felt in Miami. One honest conversation, he said, was still available. I told him he was not my therapist and the garage smelled like exhaust and I was going home. I walked to the stairwell door without looking back at him. That night I texted Odette that Declan had made a scene in the garage and I was fine, but he was spiraling. I attached the original credit card notification and said that was what had set him off. I did not mention Piero's name on the travel insurance add-on. Odette read the message, then screenshotted it before she replied, and opened her notes app and wrote beneath an earlier entry. She left that part out. In the morning, Declan came downstairs with a small hardcover notebook, red, the kind used for project logs, open to a page with 3 dates written in columns. He closed it when I came down and slid it under the hallway table between a stack of Wren's school folders, but the red edge of the cover remained visible, and I looked at it for a moment and told myself it was nothing. Callista came for the weekend. She arrived Saturday morning with grocery bags and the particular energy she carried when she was concerned about something but had decided to wait and see. A kind of warm watchfulness that I had never found comfortable. She made breakfast at our stove, soft eggs, orange juice poured into the small glasses Wren loved. Wren sat at the kitchen table with a crayon and a paper placemat, drawing something she called a water horse, and the morning felt ordinary until it did not. Halfway through her eggs, Wren said without looking up that Mommy had said Daddy was boring and the man from the beach was fun. She said it the way children say the things they have stored up, as fact between 2 colours, without pausing to check the room. Callista looked at Declan. Declan looked at Wren. He asked her gently where she had heard that, and she said from Mommy's phone in the hallway when she was supposed to be sleeping. That afternoon, Declan stood in Wren's bedroom doorway while she built a tower from wooden blocks on the rug. He asked very quietly what else she had heard. Wren said Mommy had told someone that Daddy did not know how to have fun and the beach man did, and she had heard it through the wall when the hallway light was still on. Then she asked if they were going to move. Declan crouched down and told her that no one was going anywhere right now, and he helped her place a block on the top of the tower, and he left the room and stood in the hallway for a long moment. The hallway smelled faintly of the lavender spray they used to help Wren sleep, and the overhead light turned the floor's varnish a flat amber. I came home that evening to find Declan sitting on the living room sofa without his phone or a book or anything at all, which was unusual enough that I stopped in the doorway. He told me what Wren had said and when she had said it and to whom. He kept his voice completely level. He said a 6-year-old at her grandmother's kitchen table should not be a source of information about her mother's opinion of her father or about another man. His trap question was specific. He asked me to tell him who the beach man was. Those were Wren's words. And whether I had said those words during the call with Odette that he had heard from the hallway at 10:20 on a Thursday night. Given that Wren's bedroom door was 20 feet from the hallway phone spot, and the walls in their apartment were not thick, he said he needed me to confirm or deny that conversation in factual terms, one way or the other. I told him Wren was 6 and 6-year-olds heard syllables, not sentences. I said Callista had coached Wren to repeat something she had barely understood, and that Declan was constructing a case out of a child's fragment of imagination, and that kind of behaviour was a cruelty I had not expected from him. I said I was the one who put Wren to bed every night, and I knew my daughter's patterns, and a grandmother with a grudge and a husband with a notebook were not reliable interpreters of what a child said at a breakfast table. His second attempt was the steadiest I had heard him speak. He said this was the one thing he needed, for Wren never to be in a position to overhear her mother describe him as boring and someone else's fun, and he needed that to stop tonight. He said, if I could commit to that single boundary, they could have a real conversation about what I actually wanted from this marriage. He offered couples counselling, a specific mediator, no one either of them knew, neutral ground, and he said the offer would not stay open indefinitely. I said the problem was not what Wren had overheard. I said the problem was that Declan had built a cold, quiet, emotionally unavailable home and then acted surprised when I found warmth in another direction, and that the Miami trip was a symptom of what he had made, not a cause of anything. I said when he had an answer about what had driven me there, I would be ready to discuss it. I closed the bedroom door and he did not come after me. 2 days later, I came to Declan in the study with a different voice, measured, soft, almost conciliatory. I said I had been thinking and I did not want to lose the marriage over a misunderstanding. I said I was willing to stop contact with Piero entirely if he stopped treating my daily movements as evidence to be catalogued, and if Callista was told not to involve Wren in adult observations. I held onto the doorframe and kept my voice reasonable and my face open, and I believed I was being generous. Declan listened to the whole thing. Then he said he had heard me, and then he said, if she was offering to stop contact with Piero, that meant there was contact worth stopping, and the question he had been asking since the gym parking lot, whether the Miami trip had been with Piero, now had an answer she had given him herself. He said he did not need to continue the conversation. He thanked me for telling him more than he had known before and turned back to his desk. The offer collapsed completely before I could find a way to reframe it, and the doorframe I was holding felt suddenly like the edge of a room I was being asked to leave. That night, a calendar notification appeared on the shared family tablet. His entry, created that evening. River Walk, 8:15 a.m. for Friday, with no other detail. I saw it when I picked up the tablet to check Wren's school schedule. The entry looked like the others, but something about it did not sit the same way. In the morning, the red notebook was no longer under the hallway table. Declan's desk drawer, which had never required a key before, was locked. On Friday morning, Declan was dressed before Wren was awake, dark dress shirt, not his usual flannel. And he had made Wren's lunch and left it in the refrigerator with a sticky note. Her name written in his handwriting with a small star beside it, the way he always did it. He picked up the desk key from the hallway table, clipped it to his lanyard, and left the apartment before I had finished my coffee. I followed him. I crossed the lobby in my jacket over my gym clothes and found him 2 blocks from our building at the walk-up coffee kiosk set against a painted green wall, overlooking the pedestrian path along the river. He had a flat white and his phone out, and he did not look surprised to see me. Before any of that, though, the morning after the desk drawer was locked, while I was still asleep, Declan had cancelled the automatic transfer from his individual savings account to the joint household buffer account, $400 every month for 3 years. He did it through his banking app standing at the hallway table, and he did not mention it. That same afternoon, he picked up a plain envelope from the mailbox alcove in the building lobby. a small vestibule with brass-faced boxes and a fluorescent bulb that flickered once before going steady. And he read what was inside while standing there, then refolded it and tucked it inside his jacket. He was back upstairs before I returned from the gym. The envelope was not on any surface I could find. His energy for the rest of that day was different. Unhurried, settled, like a man who has already said everything that needed saying and is now simply waiting for the calendar to catch up. At the coffee stand, I told him I wanted to know what the Riverwalk appointment had been and why his desk was locked. He said the appointment was a private call and that the desk was locked because he was keeping some things organised separately now. He said this was his last honest conversation with me as a pair, and he meant it without cruelty. Then his trap question came, and it had a precision I had not prepared for. He said the travel insurance confirmation on the Miami booking had listed Piero Anza as a second adult on the reservation. He asked me to tell him in one sentence, no qualifications, no spin, whether I and Piero had shared a room at the Caicos Terrace on the Saturday night I posted the beach story to my close friends list. Yes or no? He said he was giving me a final opportunity to be honest. I told him that a man's name appearing on a hotel insurance field because the hotel system auto-populated the reservation contact did not make him a roommate, and that Declan was reaching. I said his calmness was a manipulation technique, and I could see through it clearly. He said he was not reaching, and that he knew what he knew, and that he was giving me one last opportunity to tell the truth, and that if I did not take it, he would handle what remained of this properly, quietly, and completely. He finished his coffee, set the cup in the recycling slot beside the kiosk, and walked back toward the building along the river path. At the lobby entrance, I caught up and told him he was being theatrical. He said he was not. He said she could reach him through his phone for anything related to Ren or the household schedule, and everything else would move through the appropriate process. I asked what process. He said she would see. He opened the lobby door and held it, the way he always had, and I walked through it first. That same evening, I went to Odette's apartment building rooftop. 5 women, wine, a folding table, citronella candles, the skyline going gold, and then dark. By 8:30, I had told the whole story to the full group. Declan's ultimatum at the coffee stand, the hotel insurance field, the calm threat, the phrase handle it properly as a pressure tactic. I called him a man who mistook spreadsheets for emotional intelligence, and the group laughed, and someone said I should document his behaviour in case he tried anything. I felt the approval in the room the way I always did at events I had organised, warm, confirming mine. I took out my phone and opened Instagram and posted a public story, not close friends public. A photo of the rooftop, the candles, the skyline, captioned with a line about choosing peace and choosing people who celebrated your joy instead of auditing it, and 2 wave emojis. I tagged the location. I tagged Odette. The story went live at 8:52. Odette read the caption, then screenshotted it and added it to a folder on her phone without saying anything to me about it. At home later that night, Declan was at the study desk when I came in at 10:30. He closed the laptop when I appeared in the doorway. He said goodnight. His phone was fully charged on the desk beside the lamp, face down. On the edge of the desk sat a small plastic tab divider, orange, with the word copy written on it in black marker in his handwriting. I told myself it was a work file. I went to bed. At 11:50, a calendar update appeared on the family tablet. Meridian branch, 9 a.m., for Tuesday, no other detail. Meridian branch was the name of our joint bank branch. I read the entry twice and told myself he was reviewing a car loan. I turned the tablet over and lay in the dark and did not sleep well. And in the morning, Ren's lunch was already in the refrigerator with its small star, and Declan was dressed and gone before I came downstairs, and the hallway table was clear of everything except Ren's reading folder. Meridian branch was a mid-floor suite downtown, frosted glass door, small lobby, a conference room at the back. I arrived at 8:56 expecting a joint account review. Inside the conference room sat Mr. Rourke, the branch manager, Declan in a dark dress shirt with his hands flat on the table, and a woman named Petra Callum, his attorney. A tabbed document set already faced my chair. Rourke explained the appointment had been requested through legal counsel for formal notification at a neutral location. I confirmed my identity before thinking whether I should. Petra slid the documents forward. A divorce petition with temporary financial orders, already filed the previous Friday, hours before I'd posted the rooftop story thinking I was the one moving first. The motion included a freeze on all joint accounts, a 14-day order granting Declan the apartment, an interim custody schedule naming him primary residential parent, and a review of marital expenditures for the past 9 months. The evidence section named everything. The Caicos Terrace booking, the travel insurance with Piero's name from the shared email, the close friend's Instagram story, screenshotted by Priya before I archived it, the deleted Piero text thread, recovered through carrier backup, the phone log showing Piero's number active since October, Wren's statement at Callista's table corroborated in writing, and the public rooftop story from Odette's, posted the day after Declan's final conversation with me, described in the filing as voluntary public disclosure, on a public account, with a tagged location. I told Rourke this wasn't a bank matter, that my husband was using a neutral venue to humiliate me. Rourke said evenly that the documents had been delivered and the branch's role was concluded. He offered water. I didn't take it. Declan looked at me, said nothing, thanked everyone, and walked out. I stood in the conference room for 40 seconds after the door closed. The glass pitcher on the table held a stripe of morning light without moving. I had believed the rooftop story was confidence, proof no one controlled my narrative. What I hadn't understood was that every post, every performance of ease, carried a timestamp. The man I called cold had been building the record I provided him, with patience I mistook for passivity. The calmness I called manipulation was simply a filing date, a neutral venue, and a document set organised by a man who had tried words first, many times, in many rooms, and received performance every time. I pushed through the frosted door to the street. I called Odette. She heard 2 sentences and said quietly, she couldn't talk. She hung up. I stood on the sidewalk until a delivery van at the curb closed its rear door with a clang that travelled down the block, and then the curb was empty, and I didn't know where to go. Closure. The 14-day vacate window began that Wednesday. Soraya moved into her parents' spare room with 2 suitcases. The joint cards were frozen by Thursday. She found out at a pharmacy self-checkout when the card declined on a $10 item and paid cash and told no one for 4 days. Wren's custody schedule started the following weekend. Declan did the first pickup, and Wren carried her backpack with the lavender spray in the front pocket. Odette never replied. Piero texted that he'd been meaning to call. He didn't. The rooftop story was still live Sunday night, 31 likes, captions still reading choosing peace. Because Soraya couldn't decide what taking it down would mean, and leaving it up meant something too. And she had run out of ways to control what things meant.